He's selling this now? What is this? Okay, dude.
Currently, right now on Twitter, there is a headline that says Kanye West's autism diagnosis separating behavior from diagnosis. Like, why do we need to have this discourse as if being autistic is a prerequisite for having a Nazi crash out on Twitter?
I have a different approach to it. I do think that like his mental illness certainly played a major role in making him vulnerable and more susceptible to Nazi influence. Candace Owens played a big role in, I think, Kanye West's like neo-Nazi radicalization. Having said that, however, this is the second time. This is the second go at it. And I think at this point, it's very obvious. It's fairly obvious that it's not because of just like the mania that comes in and out of Kanye West's life, but also I think he's doing it for attention. Like he's just very clearly trying to sell some product. And if you can't do it because of your creative skills, what do? You go for the lowest common denominator. That's it. The lowest common denominator is saying shit that people will pay attention to negatively. Okay? 14-year-old kids do this exact same thing all the time. Like literally this exact same thing, which is, screaming the racially charged, racist ass bullshit. That's it. He's like an angry baby. He hit every part of the political spectrum. I will say nothing bad or against China. They always showed me love. When Americans turned their backs on me. Who's your top 5 baddest bitches of all time? My wife, my wife, my wife, my wife. My wife demoralizes bitches. I change my mind when I feel like it. If you see anyone around me, know that they are providing a service. Friends are for kids. I used to be broke. Now I can't relate to brokenness and don't want to. All white people are racist. I'm happily out of touch. He's selling this now? What is this? Okay, dude. I've wanted to make this t-shirt for years. My greatest performance art piece thus far. This has 89,000 likes. Twitter is so cooked. Yeah, Heil Hitler 01. Dude, let me explain something to you, okay? Let me explain something to you. This is 1,000,000% someone who is unimaginably desperate for attention. Okay. He is just simply doing what he thinks is the edgiest thing you can do. It's a desperate ploy for attention from an old man who is nearing 50 years old, who unfortunately for many of his fans and himself has not contributed to the culture in meaningful and relevant ways in quite a while at this point. And I think that bricked his brain. He already was like very obviously not all there, surrounded by sycophants who lean into his worst motivations, who allow him to go crazy like this. He's just basically popping off, desperately trying to garner as much attention as he possibly can. And we're kind of giving it to him, but not in the way that he wants it to happen. That's it. Can you explain how Candace Owens played a role in this? In Kanye West's most vulnerable moments, Candace Owens was literally constantly stuck to his ass cheeks, okay? A lot of people don't remember this. This was all the way back in like 2018, if I'm not mistaken. It was the first time he had a crash out. Van Lathan, I forget how to say his name, I'm sorry, famously had that TMZ argument with him where he was saying like slavery is a mindset, where he was basically unwinding, where he first started doing the MAGA shit. That was when he was linked up with Candace Owens. And Candace Owens was nonstop pumping his brain with like at first some Hotep stuff and then later directly neo-Nazi shit. Okay? Especially when he went to Africa, when he did his Africa tour. I know some people that were there with him, and they explained to me how shocking it was and how much more shit that he's openly saying now he was saying 7 years ago. Okay? He was saying all this stuff behind closed doors, and then he's now voluntarily revealing this stuff now. That's it. The reality of the matter is, this is kind of the trajectory that Kanye West has been on for almost the past decade. I used to be woke too. I like that being woke now is just saying being anti-Nazi. Like that's what wokeness has gotten to. Cancel culture is now when you want to say that like a federal government employee shouldn't be on the timeline talking about, deporting every Indian. That's cancel culture. Okay. If you say, hey, this like 19, 20-year-old was tweeting about how we should deport every Indian and we should normalize Indian hate. Okay. 2 weeks before assuming the role of controlling the treasury, right? Like maybe that's not the best possible person to hire for the job. That's cancel culture. And now woke is when you're like, say no to Nazis. If I were to do some systemic analysis here, some systemic critique here, I think one of the major issues with this kind of hog behavior, is that it does have a tendency to normalize other people coming out this way, because there are plenty of people who want clout. There are plenty of people who want attention. So they go, oh, well, Kanye's doing it. I'm going to do it too. And they see that as a perfect way to come out and actively try to make this more of a normal attitude to have. The way this works is like when Elon Musk hits that Sig Heil, and there's a lot of discourse, and he gets no punishments, no penalties for it as the wealthiest, most powerful person on the planet, that creates an environment where a lot more people will feel comfortable doing this kind of thing. Hasan, thank you for not feeding the narrative that Kanye's acting like this due to bipolar 1 disorder. I was diagnosed with it in 2017. No, the only thing that contributes to it is like, it obviously, when you're bipolar, yes, you are more vulnerable, more susceptible to outside influences like this, but it's still him doing it. You know what I mean? He's like, not everyone with bipolar disorder that goes out and becomes a Nazi. Okay. People actively work to control their urges. And I think that Kanye West, especially given the media blackout that he engaged in the past, like this is not the first time he's doing it. This is the second time he's doing it very publicly. Okay. And the stakes are constantly raised. So obviously there is a separate narcissistic tendency here where he obviously wants to garner attention by doing this. It's not because he's bipolar, although that feeds into him being vulnerable, I think, especially alongside his narcissism and his tendency to push away people that are like criticizing him or critical of him in his own orbit, that try to reach out to him and preserve his mental sanity. But it's clear that, especially considering the times where he hasn't behaved like this prominently, and the suspicious nature of how he came out recently again and started popping off like this again right before he decides to like release an album or sell some merchandise or whatever, it shows me that he's doing this for a very specific, very deliberate, very nefarious purpose, which is to garner more attention.
This is the official close of the Kanye chapter. See, the thing is, right, Kanye West, when he used to be contrarian, he would try to accompany it with some level of thought, all of those arguments that he had maybe, I don't know, 7 years ago, where he's on TMZ, and even those were horrible, but it seemed to stem not just out of some like maybe temper tantrum or some want to be noticed so badly that you're literally saying anything. It seemed as if, at least back then, though those arguments were terrible, he was trying to articulate his point. I'm not blaming the fans. I'm not. Y'all don't have control over what Kanye West says. But a lack of engagement, I think, is what's required when you see people doing things like this. Kanye West is incapable. Yes, Kanye West is incapable of making noise musically currently. He has no ideas, nothing thought-provoking, nothing left in the
Exactly. And when you're like an incredibly influential artist for most of your life, I think that bricks your brain. So you try to hit the lowest common denominator nonsense that garners maximum amounts of attention. And that's where he is. That's currently where he is. Exactly. Like, the Nazi stuff is a weird situation because on the one hand, it's incredibly dangerous to normalize this kind of rhetoric. Okay. That's one. Number two, he does have this ideological leaning for sure. Okay. Make no mistake. But the reason why he's coming out like this It's not because of mental illness, even though that is a contributing factor. Okay? The reason why he's coming out like this is because he wants attention and he doesn't know how to get it with his art. He doesn't have motion anymore. He can't dictate fashion trends. He can't dictate music trends. He's completely far removed from rap as a medium. His artistic expression is not up to par. Like, I feel like if you made him listen to like a one Osama song or whatever, he would snap back to reality almost. Like, it would break his brain so hard. Like one Plaque Max collaboration stream would just destroy his brain.
Now, just because Kanye is a musician, it doesn't mean that the only medium in which he can express himself is through music. It just doesn't appear to be a coincidence that the music quality has significantly dropped over the last 5 years. He's no longer in that musical GOAT conversation. He's dropping trailer after trailer and snippet after snippet of this AI bullshit all over his social media, trying to garner attention and noise, and nobody's biting at the bait.
He tweeted about Wagner, said like, oh, I only listen to classical compositions from Wagner. He's the best, because he wasn't broken by the Jews or whatever. He's just doing Nazi dog whistles on every aspect, including his music. It's so stupid.
He's resorted to having to be acknowledged via Twitter by saying literally anything. It doesn't have to come from a thought. It doesn't have to come from a deep-seated emotion. It doesn't have to come from something that he's been sitting with for a while. Anything. It's basically Kanye's rage bait. That's it. He wants attention. He can't get it through music because, for whatever reason, I'm not going to say he's not talented enough to produce records that would get people talking, but he hasn't done so over the last 5 years.
He is so washed and so desperate for attention that he knows this is the last thing you can do. There is the only thing you can do that is worse than this if you actively come out in support of like pedophilia or something. Okay, that's it. That's the last move that he's got in the tank. Okay, the one thing he hasn't pulled on yet is saying he loves Adolf Hitler is basically second to last before you hit the full Monty. This is the funniest tweet about this process, I think. Him coming out and being like, I love Hitler, now what, bitches? And this is the best tweet for it. Okay, so does 30% of the site. You're not special anymore. Exactly. Yeah, now what, dude? I can't believe you said you love Nazis on the Nazi platform. Like, here, this in and of itself shows that this doesn't garner the same level of attention anymore because it's not even special. Ultimately, you ain't special. I mean, these guys are getting hired. Guys with opinions like this are getting hired to the federal government right now, okay?
He pops out to the Grammys with his half-naked wife. Definitely feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember the last time Kanye West went to the Grammys. When an NBA player wants to be acknowledged, he performs well in his games. When a producer wants to be acknowledged, he shuts his whole ass up and makes some drums. When a chef wants to be acknowledged, he goes in the fucking kitchen. But when a creatively self-neutered Kanye West wants to get attention, he goes to Twitter.
I think Kanye would have been more impactful if, after all of the instances where he got Bianca naked, he went to the Grammys and he was butt-ass naked and she was dressed up. But he's got no creative juice. He's got no motion. It's tapped out. If he came out there with like a sock on his dick and just walked that goddamn red carpet and Bianca was like dressed up, people will be like, damn, that's crazy. I can't believe he did that. But guess what? That would require a little bit of critical thinking. That would require some creativity. Okay? He's got no emotion. He's got no aura. He's got no new opinions. He's just looking for bottom of the barrel nonsense. Look at me. I'm dominating my wife that looks like Kim Kardashian. Okay, free Bianca. He's a steak rage bait Twitter account in celebrity form. Yeah.
The guy who's produced some of the greatest records you've heard in your life, who's been acknowledged in the fashion industry, his creative juices are so sapped up that instead of creating better material, he'd rather resort to I love Hitler tweets. I think it's up to the people to do better and just not unironically engage with him. I've seen people on Twitter trying to argue back and forth with Kanye West in this moment. He doesn't give a fuck what you're talking about. He just cares that you're engaging. He doesn't care what's coming out of his mouth, and neither should you. The music has been scattered, unable to speak for itself or prove itself for years now. And I think it's up to his fans to genuinely just reach a breaking point.
I think also maybe this is like him testing the waters a little bit too. Like, yeah, I think he really, really, really wants attention. That's number one. But also, I think he is desperate to see, like, I think his narcissism creates this unique predicament where he's like, what can I say and still maintain a fan base? I think that's probably the other side of this as well, which is like, I'm going to say the most unhinged shit to garner as much attention as possible. But I wonder if I can like say this stuff and still maintain a loyal fandom. I guess that's part of it too. I also think the music industry is interested in the answer to this question as well for monetary purposes. But like, he's not, I don't even think he's not putting out bangers. He's not getting rewarded. I think he ultimately would need to put out really good music. And if you have really good music, then you wouldn't need to do this anyway. He's getting rewarded if he sold 800K off a t-shirt though. Dude, he sold 3,000 units. He's fucking Kanye West. Are you kidding me? That's literally like streamer drops. Yeah, he sold $800,000 worth of shirts and he made $60,000. But I looked at the number of units he actually sold, and the number of units he sold was like 3,000. Do you understand how little that is for someone like Kanye West? That's Kanye West. 10 years ago, Kanye West is changing fashion, okay? Whether you like him or not, playing a significant and active role in changing fashion trends at the global stage. Now he's literally doing Twitch streamer merchandise numbers. That's it. He made people wear those ugly ass Yeezys, dude. Think about that. I'm just simply explaining to you like why he's doing that on top of the fact that he is that. He definitely is that. But the reason why he's also doing that right now is because he's got nothing in the tank. He's got nothing creatively in the tank. And when you got nothing in the tank, what do? If your job revolves around the attention economy, okay? If your job revolves around garnering as much attention as possible so you can consider yourself to be an influential person. Like, he went from being an artist to being an influencer, okay? He leveled down, and not even like a cool influencer. He went from being an artist, a cherished, well-celebrated, well-respected artist, to being a kick streamer. It is the bottom of the barrel. Why do you think all these kick streamers do shit like this all the time? It's because they don't know anything else. They don't know any other way of getting attention. Okay? Like, he devolved. He's washed. That's it. Oh, there is also one interesting take from Boltzmann that I kind of agree with that I've talked about before. Elon and Kanye share a CIA lawyer, Alex Spiro, who played a key role in the decision-making early on as Elon took over Twitter, perhaps even more so than Elon by one account. Despite Elon's open servitude to Israel, Twitter has become a hive of Nazi propaganda since his takeover. Now, I don't care about like the lawyer connection, but I do think it's very odd. That there is a lot of prominence to be offered to you if you say unhinged anti-Semitic stuff. And a lot of the people who say unhinged anti-Semitic things, who also then will turn around and act like they are anti-Israel, are the names that you hear of the most. I feel like there's a concerted effort to basically make it seem as though most of the anti-Israel commentary actually comes from people who are also anti-Semitic, whether it be Myron from Fresh and Fit, whether it be Dan Bilzerian, or numerous other people that get a lot of prominence from the likes of Piers Morgan and many other outlets. Now, of course, on the one hand, I think that anti-Semitism is not seen as big as a threat as being anti-Israel is. Clearly, that's not the case. Clearly, if that was the case, then the ADL would be coming after the likes of Donald Trump or Elon Musk way more aggressively. The ADL will regularly go after people who are obviously overtly anti-Semitic, like Kanye. This one is a classic example, okay? This is just a way to beef up your bona fides, to say like, oh no, I'm in this still. I'm in this to still attack anti-Semitism. If you were in the combating anti-Semitism game, you'd probably be saying a lot more about the likes of Elon Musk hitting a fucking Sig Heil, for example, instead of defending him because he is pro-Israel. Basically, a lot of the most prominent anti-Israeli accounts are being openly anti-Semitic on the timeline. It cannot be an accident. It works in two different ways. On the one hand, when anti-Semitism grows and festers in the Western world, then Israel can continue to say, look at how anti-Semitic the world is. We have to have a Jewish ethno-state. The other side of this also is that you can then pair up anti-Semitism and anti-Israel takes by saying, look, all the most prominent anti-Israel accounts, all the most prominent anti-Israel people are rabid anti-Semites. That's why I've often maintained the position that someone like myself who actively combats anti-Semitism, who is also anti-Israel, is a far greater threat to these institutions that are tasked with defending Israel than someone who is openly anti-Semitic and anti-Israel. Because when you're openly anti-Semitic and anti-Israel, then you can just go, yeah, this guy fucking hates Jews. Like, look at him. It's very clear. That's why he hates Israel. But when it's someone like myself, that's a much larger problem because you can't present an argument as easily as, well, that guy is anti-Semitic. And I mean, there it is. He tweeted out Heil Hitler again. That's the end, finish. Just check his tweet out right now. Jesus Christ. What do you mean? This is not new, chat. What are you talking about? He's tweeted out Heil Hitler like 25 times in the past like 48 hours. What are you talking about? He's spamming it. I think this is a desperate and very sad ploy for attention. Do I believe that he personally thinks this way? This is his ideological position? Yes. Do I believe that his mental health complications made him more susceptible to this kind of ideology from a charismatic figure in his corner, Candace Owens? Okay, absolutely. Having said that, however, the major contributor to him doing this is his desperate ploy for garnering attention. He can't do it by making music. Okay, he is trying to still be as relevant as he can. He can't do this by making music, so he's trying to do it by, consistently glazing Adolf Hitler. What a strange world we live in where this like random corner of the internet that we exist in is becoming more prominent and more involved in the broader culture. And it's happening in the worst ways possible. You know what I mean? We are in the bad timeline. But let's hear what Anthony Fantano has to say.
Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well. Here I am with another one of these videos. Yep, these videos here, these videos that I'm tired of doing, they seem like they are too big and annoying and obnoxious to ignore, but simultaneously, I don't really know what there is to add to this topic at this point. That topic being Kanye West and the continually ridiculous, harmful, and outlandish things that he says on a regular basis, specifically on his Twitter account, where recently he has dropped such hits as, I'm a Nazi. Yeah, he's literally saying it again. He's saying it again. He has said it before.
I'm a Nazi.
He is reiterating it one more time, really screaming it out for those in the back who refuse to face facts in terms of like where his head and ideology are currently at. Hitler was so fresh, and y'all call me Yadolf Hitler, and your bitch still wants to fuck. I mean, who truly knows what is in this man's heart and how far this political ideology rabbit hole goes down for Kanye? He does have a really big history of just being a contrarian and embracing whatever kind of goes against what he perceives as the grain around him, socially speaking. He even launched a tweet here where he says, I could say Jew as much as I want and Hitler as much as I want. Matter of fact, I do say it when I want. He's still saying all of it. he's still a moron. And honestly, I don't really know if that's any better than him actually being a Nazi. I mean, he's either embracing it in order to be edgy and go against what he thinks everybody wants him to believe or feel or give into, or he's embracing it because he genuinely believes in the perspective. Either are bad and disqualifying. It's all bad. There's no reason or justification for any of this. I mean, it's gotten so awful that previous collaborators like JPEG Mafia have had to tweet in order to distance himself from it. And currently right now on Twitter, there is a headline that says, Kanye West's autism diagnosis separating behavior from diagnosis. Like, why do we need to have this discourse as if being autistic is a prerequisite for having a Nazi crash out on Twitter? Clearly, there is much more than being on the spectrum going on with this man. And the only silver lining to this cloud right now is that it does seem like on some level that even his most sycophantic supporters who were like really there with him through the Vultures album cycle and so on and so forth are now becoming disillusioned with his behavior and his commentary at this point. So, I mean, I guess that's at least somewhat of a saving grace as a result of all this. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I think that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just so obvious. It's so obvious what's happening. And it's kind of sad. Kanye is massively influential to young people, hopefully less so in time. I don't think he has that kind of motion any longer. I don't think Kanye West has that level of skill. To be honest, this shit's incredibly sad. Bro has kids. Yeah, that's the other side of the story, which is like he's 50 years old. He has children at this point who can see him doing this kind of stuff. And it's just like it's so lame. It's so corny. It's so sad. I don't know. I mean, he is just actively manic posting on the timeline up and down. He's about to be 50 soon, and he's still doing this stuff.